Shout out to Darren McNeil for sending me the story coming from WGLT.org. Now, I wasn't expecting to do any more updates or videos about the Rica Rountree situation, but because we've already tackled the main portion, we already discussed the sperm donor. He's in jail for 8 years. We've talked about Cynthia Baker. That bitch is behind bars for the rest of her life. But there was one other entity that had to be discussed, and it's something that I've talked about in my videos when it came to this story, but did not talk much about. And if it wasn't for Rica Rountree's mother bringing it up on a consistent basis, we probably would never talk about it. And that's the conversation of the DCFS, or the Department of Child and Family Services, and how lackluster they were when it came to the welfare and well-being of Rica Rountree. When it comes to the DCFS or anyone who has to talk about the well-beings of a child, I realize that they are very lackadaisical with their responses whenever a welfare check is needed. Look at Devontae Hart and his siblings. They were called out there multiple times, and you would think that with all those calls they had to be made, that they would be suspicious. And the last time that they came out there, which was the time that they finally took it seriously to come and get those kids, it was already too late. Those two murderous skanks packed them up and put them in a truck and drove off of a cliff and killed all of them, themselves included. And I think the same thing happens when it comes to this. Like, they did not respond the way that they should have when it came to her and her well-being, and knowing how she looked with the markings on her body, the swellings, the bruises, and all of that. It was very blatantly obvious that this girl was not in the best place. She was not in the best care. Not by the sperm donor or that bitch that he was laid up with. So I'm going to go ahead and get into this article, and we're going to find out what's going on when it comes to the DCFS. The hastily concluded investigation by the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services into black eyes and bruises on a child who died weeks later of abuse is laid out in state records recently filed in a McLean County murder case. A DCFS worker spent less than an hour at the Bloomington home of Richard Rountree and his girlfriend Cynthia Baker on December 11, 2018, interviewing the pair about injuries Rountree's 8-year-old daughter Rica had when she arrived at school. Staff at Fox Creek Elementary School called DCFS on December 10th to report Rica's 2 black eyes and bruises on her cheek. DCFS Child Protection Specialist Patricia Shannon met with Rica at the school the following day. A timeline of Shannon's work on the abuse case was recently filed in court by the McLean County State's Attorney's Office in connection with Baker's November 19th sentencing on murder charges and Rica's death. Rica told the DCFS worker and school staff that her facial injuries were caused by a fall about 3 days earlier as she was packing toys into a box in a small closet. That's most likely the story they told her to say. At Baker's sentencing, Fox Creek's elementary principal Leslie Davenport testified she had serious concerns about Rica's well-being. The child came to school in ill-fitting clothes, and the black eyes were not the first signs of trauma seen on the girl, Davenport told Judge K.C. Costigan. At 1:38 p.m. on December 11th, the DCFS worker called Baker about the alleged abuse and requested she take the child to see a doctor. A similar request was made minutes later in a call to the girl's father. Sperm donor. Richard Rountree told DCFS at 2:08 p.m. that the girl's doctor in Minnock was on vacation, which probably was a lie. Rountree reported that he does not have the money to go to the emergency room or prompt care because it would cost $200 to the report. So you don't have $200 to take care of your child. He probably does, but he just didn't do it. I would not be surprised if he was being controlled by this bitch. He probably let this bitch run gunshot on him, which makes, in my opinion, him an even more weaker man. Like, this is not a man. Her sperm donor was not a man. And I think I specified that in previous videos that I've done about him. This is a weak little boy who just happened to be in a grown man's body and have a child. 2 hours later, Rountree told DCFS Rica would be taken to a doctor in Pontiac. He reported that everything was okay and there were no concerns, and asked the state worker to meet with him and Baker later on December 11th. At 5:10 p.m., Shannon interviewed Baker's 16-year-old daughter about Rica's injuries. The girl said she was not home when Rica allegedly fell, but recalled Rica telling her about falling on a toy box, which was probably the same story they told her to say. When the worker tried to interview Baker's 6-year-old daughter at 5:13 p.m., Baker stepped in and denied Shannon access to the child, because they know that 6-year-old probably would have said something. They couldn't manipulate the little girl enough. That's why she stepped in. Baker complained that DCFS has made her children anxious due to the frequent visits and interviews, according to the 36-page state report clearing Baker. Shannon notes that Rountree joined his girlfriend's criticism in the constant DCFS calls. The trip to a doctor in Pontiac meant missed hours at work, Baker told Shannon during an interview. Cynthia reported that children fall and have accidents all the time. She is not understanding how come it is abuse with Rica, said the report. Rountree concluded that Rica may just be clumsy. Listen to the stuff that this so-called dad is saying of his daughter. Man, listen, I hope they put his ass in gym pop and they beat his ass almost every goddamn day. Rica was a new patient for the Pontiac doctor who found it plausible that blood can travel from one side of the face to the other, Shannon supervisor Daniel Norris wrote in his December 12th review of the worker's report. The doctor also told DCFS an x-ray he ordered of Rica's injuries was never completed. On December 20th, 10 days after Rica suffered 2 black eyes, Norris agreed that Shannon's recommendation of an unfounded finding against Baker, meaning no credible evidence of abuse, was found to support the accusation. 5 days later, Rica was found unresponsive in her bed at the family's new home in Normal. She died the following day at a Peoria hospital of internal injuries later determined to be caused by Baker's repeated abuse. So it sounds to me like this Shannon person was trying her best to get aid to this girl, but she had so many obstacles in her way. One being Cynthia Baker, the other being the sperm donor, and another one being her higher up. So it seems like this Shannon woman was really concerned, but she had so many obstacles and roadblocks in her way that she could not get the proper care to this girl like she wanted to. And that's unfortunate. So I do give kudos to her, because she did at least try. But so much was happening that everything was blocking her from doing what she felt was her job. And now look at what it's led to. The 3-page report authored by DCFS following Rica's death chronicles abuse allegations dating back to 2017, when Rica told authorities her father and Baker were regularly whipping her with a belt. Rountree was later given custody of Rica, and the DCFS allegation was expunged. In 2018, Rica's biological mother, Ann Simmons, asked DCFS to investigate a split lip, black eyes, and marks on her child's neck. Again, Rica offered explanations for the trauma and was returned to her father. That's crazy. Even now, her mother now is involved. Rica told them what was going on, and they still gave her back to her sperm donor and the bitch that the sperm donor was laid up with. That's the issue that I have with DCFS in this situation. They saw that this girl was being abused. She said that. Her mother said it. That Shannon woman was suspicious of it, but they kept giving her back. That's why I said that now I see why the mother is heavily going after them. Because this is all new information right here. Because we only knew bits and pieces about DCFS and the handling of this case, of this situation, but we did not have all the information like we're getting right now. After Rica's death, DCFS cited Baker and Rountree for child abuse. Yeah, after the fact. Rountree is serving 8 years in prison for child endangerment. McLean County prosecutors Mary Cole and Erica Reynolds asked the judge to consider the DCFS report on Rica's prior abuse in his sentencing decision. In his remarks to Baker ahead of sending her to prison for life, Costigan called her acts pure evil and demented. The missed opportunities by state welfare workers who failed to act when Rica showed other signs of abuse in the past year of her life while living with Baker and Rountree should be a lesson in future abuse cases. It should also be a a court case that's brought up, and all involved, with the exception of that Shannon woman, need to be fired. Our goal was to make sure Rica's lives matter, and one way to do that is through changes in how DCFS reacts to child abuse allegations, said Cole. DCFS spokesman William McCaffrey said the agency has taken several steps to better serve vulnerable children and families, including providing additional training for more than 3,200 staff to help identify safety issues in the wake of Rica's death. The agency said McCaffrey is committed to doing everything in our power to prevent similar tragedies from happening in the future. This is a tragedy that could have been prevented. It really could have, dating all the way back to 2017. In the fiscal year that ended June 30th, DCFS conducted about 81,000 investigations. Of the 77,000 reports of abuse involving children living within a family, 22,000 led to be founded claims and about 55,000 involved unsupported accusations. I'm trying to figure out what qualifies as unsupported. I mean, you saw the girl. She had visible abuse markings on her body. What else needed to be seen? More than 129,000 children were victims of alleged abuse. 39,178 were the victims of substantiated abuse, according to the data from the DCFS. That's crazy. But this is why a lot of people, like when it comes to the Department of Child and Family Services, when it comes to black children, a lot of people are weary of them. You saw that the girl said what was going on. They gave her back. The mother said what was going on and gave her back. They actually believed that she fell. I've seen kids fall, and usually when they fall, the injury happens where they usually fall at, and a lot of kids usually try not to fall on their face. So they might get a scrape on their hand, on their wrist, maybe a knee, a leg, or arm. But how two black eyes come from a fall, I don't know. That means that they had to been hitting this girl in the face with their fist. And he aided in that. The sperm donor aided in that. This is why people were telling me, I don't know how in the hell he only got 8 years. Like I said, they only gave her 8 years because of 1 year for every year. 1 year for every year of her life. That's why. Although I do agree, because he aided in that, he should have got more time. Most definitely. If they can give this bitch a life sentence, they could have gave him one too. At least no less than 40. Because this little girl did not deserve what happened to her. And she was failed by so many. This goes back to a statement that I made before. She was failed by so many. She had like no chance of survival. None. Now notice that Cynthia Baker, the bitch, did not do any of this to her own children. She has a 16-year-old and a 6-year-old. She did not do any of this abuse to her children, but she did this to somebody else's child. And the sperm donor allowed it to happen. That's why I say he is not a man. That is not a man at all. I don't know what the hell that is. That's why I call him the sperm donor, because not only is he not a man, he's not a father. He has not earned that title. He's just the guy that slept with a woman and he nutted in her and she got pregnant, and out came this little girl who unfortunately did not have a chance at a full life. And as for DCFS, they need to be investigated. The ones who was involved with this, they need a thorough investigation done on them. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you in the next one.